Madonna was leaving her hotel in New York when she saw the crowd gathering on the street, all looking up at the same building. On the 12th floor ledge stood a young woman, tears streaming down her face, ready to jump. What Madonna did next would save a life and prove that sometimes the most important performance happens off stage. It was September 23, 2017, and Madonna had just finished a business meeting at the Parker Meridian Hotel in Manhattan. She was walking to her car when she noticed an unusual commotion on 57th Street. People had stopped walking and were looking up at the building across the street with expressions of horror and fascination. Madonna followed their gaze and felt her heart stop. On a narrow ledge, 12 stories above the street, stood a young woman, maybe 19 or 20 years old, with long dark hair whipping in the wind. Even from the street, Madonna could see that the girl was crying, and that she was dangerously close to the edge. Police sirens were already wailing in the distance, but Madonna knew that in situations like this, every second counted. She had no idea that the girl on the ledge was about to become the most important audience of her entire career. Sarah Chen had been standing on that ledge for 37 minutes, working up the courage to jump. The 19-year-old college sophomore had been struggling with severe depression for 2 years, ever since her parents' devastating divorce had torn her family apart. The past 6 months had been particularly brutal. She'd failed 3 classes, lost her part-time job, and her longtime boyfriend had broken up with her via text message. Her best friend had stopped returning her calls, and her therapist had moved to another city without helping her find a replacement. But the final blow had come that morning when Sarah received a letter from her college's financial aid office. Due to her poor grades, her scholarship had been revoked. Without financial aid, she couldn't afford to continue school, and the thought of facing her disappointed parents was more than she could bear. Sarah had always been the smart one in her family, the daughter who was supposed to succeed where others had failed. The idea of admitting that she was failing at everything felt impossible. That afternoon, she'd taken the elevator to the top floor of her dorm building, climbed through a maintenance window, and stepped onto the narrow ledge that ran around the building's exterior. She'd been a Madonna fan since childhood. Her room was covered with Madonna posters, and she knew every lyric to every song. Madonna's music had been her escape during her parents' fights, her comfort during lonely nights, and her inspiration when she felt powerless.
But as Sarah stood on that ledge, she felt like even Madonna couldn't save her now. From the street below, Madonna squinted up at the girl on the ledge, and something about her looked familiar. The girl was wearing a vintage Madonna t-shirt, the same design from the Like a Prayer tour that Madonna remembered selling decades ago. "Oh my God," Madonna whispered to herself. "She's wearing my shirt." Madonna's security guard, Marcus, appeared at her elbow. "Ma'am, we should move away from here. This is dangerous, and when the media arrives—" But Madonna wasn't listening. She was studying the girl's posture, the way she was holding herself, the obvious despair in her body language. Madonna had seen that same hopelessness in her own mirror during the darkest periods of her life. "Get me a megaphone," Madonna told Marcus. "What?" "A megaphone, a bullhorn, something. I need to talk to her." Marcus looked confused. "Ma'am, the police will handle this. There are trained negotiators." "The police aren't here yet," Madonna said firmly. "And that girl is wearing my shirt. She's one of my fans. Maybe I can reach her." Madonna approached one of the police officers who had just arrived on the scene. "I'm Madonna," she said, showing her ID. "That girl up there is wearing my merchandise. She might be a fan. Let me try to talk to her." The officer, Sergeant Rodriguez, recognized Madonna immediately. "Ma'am, this is a very delicate situation. We have trained crisis negotiators on the way." "How long will that take?" Madonna asked. 10, maybe 15 minutes. Madonna looked up at the girl, who seemed to be swaying slightly in the wind. She might not have 15 minutes, Please, just let me try." Something in Madonna's voice convinced Sergeant Rodriguez to hand her his megaphone. Madonna took a deep breath and raised the device to her mouth. "Sarah," she called out. The girl on the ledge looked down, startled. She hadn't expected anyone to know her name, but one of the bystanders had identified her to police as a student from the nearby college.
"Sarah, my name is Madonna. I can see you're wearing my shirt. Thank you for supporting my music all these years." Sarah stared down in disbelief. Madonna was actually there, on the street below, talking to her. For a moment, the surreal nature of the situation made her forget why she was on the ledge. "I want to talk to you, Sarah, but it's hard for me to hear you from down here. Can you hear me okay?" Sarah nodded, still unable to believe this was really happening. "Sarah, I can see that you're in a lot of pain right now," Madonna continued, her voice carrying clearly through the megaphone but still sounding intimate and personal. "I don't know what brought you to this ledge, but I know how it feels to think that there's no way out of whatever you're going through." Madonna paused, looking up at the girl who seemed so small and fragile against the massive building. "I've been where you are, Sarah. Maybe not on a physical ledge, but I've been in that place where you feel so alone and so hopeless that ending everything seems like the only option." Sarah found herself listening intently. This wasn't what she'd expected to hear. "When I was your age, I felt like I was drowning. My mother had died, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, and I was convinced that no one would ever understand me or love me for who I really was." The crowd on the street had grown larger, but it was remarkably quiet. Even the police officers were listening to Madonna's words with intense attention. "But you know what I learned, Sarah? Those feelings, that hopelessness, that loneliness, they're not permanent. They feel permanent when you're in the middle of them, but they're not." Madonna lowered the megaphone for a moment, thinking about what she wanted to say next. She'd never spoken this publicly about her own struggles with depression and suicidal thoughts, but she realized that her privacy mattered less than Sarah's life. She raised the megaphone again. "Sarah, I want to tell you something I've never said in any interview or any song. When I was 21, I stood in my apartment bathroom with a bottle of pills in my hand, ready to take all of them. I was convinced that I was a failure, that I'd never amount to anything, and that the world would be better off without me." A gasp went through the crowd. Madonna was sharing something deeply personal with hundreds of strangers on a Manhattan street. "But I didn't take those pills, Sarah, and you know why? Because some small part of me was curious about what might happen tomorrow, just curious enough to wait one more day." Sarah was crying harder now, but she was also listening more intently than she'd listened to anything in months. "That curiosity saved my life, Sarah, and it gave me everything I never thought I could have. My music, my children, the chance to connect with people like you." "I know you're in pain right now," Madonna continued, "and I'm not going to lie to you and say that pain is going to disappear overnight. But Sarah, that pain you're feeling, it means you're alive. It means you have the capacity to feel deeply. And people who can feel that deeply can also experience joy just as intensely." Madonna paused, watching Sarah's body language. The girl seemed to be leaning slightly back from the edge, no longer swaying dangerously. "Sarah, I've performed for millions of people all over the world, but right now, you're the most important audience I've ever had, and I want to ask you to do something for me." Sarah looked down at Madonna with red, swollen eyes. "I don't know how to get back inside," Sarah called down, her voice barely audible even with the megaphone Madonna was now holding up to catch her response. "The fire department is going to help you," Madonna called back. "They have equipment and people who know how to do this safely. But Sarah, I need you to promise me something first." "What?" "Promise me,"
You'll let them help you. Promise me you won't try to jump while they're getting you down. Can you promise me that?" Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I need to hear you say it, Sarah." "I promise," Sarah called down, her voice stronger now. The fire department's rescue team had arrived during Madonna's conversation with Sarah, and they'd been quietly preparing their equipment while Madonna kept the girl engaged. Within minutes, they had a rescue platform extending towards Sarah's ledge. A firefighter named Captain Torres, who had extensive experience with suicide interventions, slowly approached Sarah, while Madonna continued to provide encouragement from below. "You're doing great, Sarah," Madonna called out, as Sarah carefully stepped from the ledge onto the rescue platform. "You're so brave. I'm proud of you." As the platform slowly descended, Madonna could see Sarah's face more clearly. She was young and pretty, with intelligent eyes that reflected both deep pain and newfound hope. When Sarah reached the ground, she was immediately surrounded by paramedics and crisis counselors, but she kept looking over at Madonna as if she couldn't believe this had really happened. Madonna stayed with Sarah while the paramedics checked her vital signs and the crisis counselors began their initial assessment. She held the girl's hand and spoke to her quietly, away from the cameras and crowds that had gathered. "What you did today took incredible courage. Not jumping, that wasn't the courageous part. The courageous part was listening and trusting and choosing to come down." Sarah was still in shock. "I can't believe you're really here. I can't believe you talked me down from there." "I didn't talk you down, Sarah. You made that decision yourself. I just reminded you that you had options." Madonna stayed with Sarah during the ambulance ride to the hospital, where Sarah would be placed under psychiatric observation and begin receiving the professional help she desperately needed. Over the following months, Madonna maintained contact with Sarah and her family. She helped arrange for Sarah to receive ongoing therapy and medication management, and she made sure Sarah had the financial support needed to return to college. But more importantly, Madonna provided something that no amount of money could buy: proof that someone cared about Sarah's survival and recovery. "Madonna saved my life that day," Sarah said in a later interview. "Not just by talking me off the ledge, but by showing me that my life had value to someone I respected and admired."
Sarah returned to college the following semester with a new major in psychology and social work. Her experience with depression and suicidal thoughts, combined with the intervention that saved her life, had given her a new sense of purpose. When news of Madonna's intervention spread, it sparked conversations about celebrity responsibility, mental health awareness, and suicide prevention. Many other young people reached out to share their own stories of suicidal thoughts and the moments that had saved them. Mental health advocates praised Madonna for her willingness to get involved and for sharing her own struggles with depression publicly. Madonna showed that you don't need to be a trained counselor to save someone's life, said Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a suicide prevention expert. Sometimes what people need most is to know that someone sees them and values their existence. Madonna's intervention with Sarah became a catalyst for her involvement in mental health advocacy. She began supporting organizations that worked with young people struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. She also started incorporating mental health awareness into her concerts and public appearances, often speaking about the importance of seeking help and the temporary nature of even the most intense emotional pain. That day on 57th Street changed me as much as it changed Sarah, Madonna said in a later interview. It reminded me that success and fame don't matter if you're not using your platform to help people who are struggling. 3 years after standing on that ledge, Sarah graduated college with honors and began working as a crisis counselor, specializing in suicide prevention. She often shared her story with clients who were contemplating ending their lives. "I tell them about the day Madonna saved my life," Sarah said. "Not because Madonna is famous, but because it shows that hope can come from the most unexpected places at the most desperate moments."
Sarah and Madonna maintained a close relationship, with Madonna attending Sarah's college graduation and later serving as a bridesmaid at Sarah's wedding. "Sarah reminds me why I do what I do," Madonna said. "Not for the charts or the awards, but for the chance to connect with people who need to know they're not alone." Madonna's intervention on 57th Street proved that sometimes the most important performances happen offstage, in moments of genuine human connection. Her willingness to risk public exposure of her own vulnerability saved a young woman's life and inspired countless others to seek help for their mental health struggles. The story also demonstrated that celebrities have unique opportunities to impact lives beyond their artistic contributions. Madonna's fame gave her a platform to reach Sarah in a way that trained negotiators might not have been able to match. Today, the Sarah Foundation, established jointly by Madonna and Sarah Chen, provides crisis intervention training and mental health resources to college students across the country. The foundation's motto, taken from what Madonna said that day, is "Your life matters to someone." Every year on September 23rd, Madonna and Sarah meet at the same street corner where Sarah's life was saved. They spend a few minutes in reflection, then visit local colleges to speak about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Madonna's decision to stop on a Manhattan street corner and talk to a desperate young fan proved that fame's greatest power isn't in entertainment, it's in the ability to reach people at their most vulnerable moments and remind them that they're not alone. Sarah's survival and recovery became proof that suicidal crises are temporary, that help can come from unexpected sources, and that sometimes all it takes to save a life is someone willing to say, "Your life matters." The conversation that lasted less than 20 minutes on that September afternoon created ripple effects that are still saving lives today. Madonna may have talked Sarah down from that ledge, but Sarah's courage to listen and trust gave both women a new understanding of what it means to use fame for something truly important. If this incredible story of hope and human connection moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with anyone who might be struggling or anyone who needs to understand the power of reaching out to others in crisis. If you're having thoughts of suicide, please reach out for help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 988. Let us know in the comments about moments when someone's kindness changed your life. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the power of human compassion.